Okay, we're live. I am attorney Vincent Davis, and this is The Secret: How to Fight CPS and Win. And I'm joined by my co-host, Miss G, Miss Georgette Truan. Good morning, Miss G. How are you? Miss G is muted. I don't think she knows that.
Mm, I'm good. How are you?
Good. So, Miss G, as I mentioned before we started the show today, our guest is about 20 minutes late. So we're
hmm
just going to have to reschedule. Apparently, she's having some childcare issues.
hmm
Understandable. So we'll reschedule. She was a guest from Florida who had a very interesting story. I was looking forward to an interview with her. But, show must go on.
hmm
And we will reschedule with her. I've already mentioned that to Grace. So today, we'll do some questions and answers. And let's start off with you having any questions or needing any answers to any CPS related material.
there's a couple of that comes to mind. If the legal guardianship of the person that has legal guardianship of the child decided to go move out of state, is there anything the parents can do anything about it?
There is. In California, you can file a 388 to try to change the order, to try to return the kids to you, or to try to move the kids out of state. Now,
Mhm.
I, I, I don't want to mislead you. If you do file this type of legal proceeding, that doesn't mean you're going to win, right? The judge may decide against you. You may not have the right type of evidence, etc., etc. But generally, if you have a visitation order with the kids, you have the, I guess, advantage because the guardian can't move out of state that will deprive you of court-ordered visitation. So that's an issue. And there was an issue that a lot of people used to bring up. I never thought it was an issue because of the full faith and credit clause in the Constitution, but a lot of people believe that a guardianship from one state is not good in another state. And I've heard many people on both sides of the aisle arguing that. I always thought that, a guardianship ordered in California under the Full Faith and Credit Act had to be given or recognized in, New York or Florida or Montana.
Because what if they establish residency in New York? I think after 3 months or so.
I don't really think it had anything to do with residency. It's just the
Mhm.
court order itself. So, for example, people used to say or argue, oh, if you have the California guardianship and you go to Florida, Florida doesn't have to recognize that you're the legal guardian. I disagree with that particular theory. Um, but that's an argument that's made. But if you want to stop the move to Florida, what you need to do is file your 388 inside the court or
Mhm.
at the court where the guardianship was granted, most likely a CPS court, and ask for a hearing and be prepared. Just because you ask for a hearing and you show up, don't think you're going to win. You got to
Mhm.
prove something. You got to have witnesses. You got to have evidence. And one of the things is if the kids are enjoying the visits with you, you might want to subpoena the kids to court so that they can testify.
What if the kids are not at age?
Then you won't be able to do it. You know,
What's the age limit of the children to be able to speak to a judge?
there's no age limit. There is a
I'm
requirement.
sorry, an age requirement. I need coffee. Go ahead,
No, no,
explain that, please.
no,
I
yeah.
get my coffee.
There's no age requirement. It's not based upon age. It's based upon whether the child can understand the difference between truth and falsity and is competent enough to testify and also can, understand uh, what happens, that the punishment that is out there if you tell a lie under oath. So it's not an age requirement. Some kids that happens at 10, some happens at 6, some happens at 4. It just
Mhm.
depends. There's no set age. Instead, it's in terms of competency. And that
When do you
happens.
think the child is when does the court see the child is most competent? What age?
There is no age, Miss
But it
G.
has to be an age because I was told, well, Okay, I know you're an attorney, but I was told by several attorneys, um,
Several 35-year attorneys, graduates of the Jerry Spence Trial Lawyers College,
no,
that
they
have
were
been
not.
doing CPS cases for over 32 years.
No,
Those kind of attorneys, you mean?
no,
Okay.
other family law attorneys.
Family law? Why are we talking family law? You know as well as I do that family law has nothing to do with this.
Correct, but they were telling me that same thing with family law. That the when it comes to the children's age in court to speak is the same guidelines as the family court. And I forgot to ask you about that. So I
No,
told them it was several of them actually, several like
actually,
four
actually,
people.
that's not true. They are not exactly the same.
I'm talking about when it comes to the age requirement.
That's what I'm talking about too.
Okay.
They're not exactly the same. Interestingly enough, there are many subtle differences between family law and CPS law, juvenile dependency law. Everybody thinks it's all the same. Why shouldn't it be the same? Because we're talking about who has custody of children. And on a certain level, I can agree, but I can just only tell you that the laws are different. In California, we have something called the Family Code. In California, we have something called the Welfare and Institutions Code.
True. Wick.
And
Hmm.
they're not the same. They're not the same. You think they should be, but they're not. And they are similar in some ways. But being an attorney, you look at the minute and subtle differences. This isn't cocktail hour talk. It's
Real
legal
talk.
analysis. Yeah, legal analysis.
Right. So let me ask you this. What if one of the parents was diagnosed as a covert narcissist or whatever type of narcissist by a 730 evaluation that was conducted? Now, does a juvenile court judge take that into consideration?
The answer is yes.
Mhm.
However, consideration is different from accept it 100% full force and effect.
Accepted, like I'm talking about, does the juvenile court see that it's dangerous for the children to be around this narcissist?
It depends on the case and it depends on the judge because you just used a different word and it means a lot. Danger. In juvenile court, there are two different types of, I guess, tests, legal tests.
Hmm.
There's the danger test, there's
Hmm.
the substantial danger test,
Hmm.
there's the risk test, and
Hmm.
there's the substantial risk test.
Hmm.
So they're all different on the scale. You know,
Hmm. But they take children from moms who are not dangerous to their children.
well, in
I
your
gave
opinion,
them to the narcissistic dad that was diagnosed as one. So what advice do you give others?
get a good attorney, present your evidence.
Mhm. But when the judge doesn't
See,
see that as, if the psychiatrist says the father is dangerous for the children, you do know that mental abuse is worse than physical abuse, right?
do I know that? I guess it
Mm.
depends on the case.
It, de- I
You
don't
know,
think it has anything to do.
mental abuse
I honestly think it's
on a
at the
scale of 1 to
children that
10.
we're talking
No,
about.
no. Think about this. You're talking to a lawyer. 1 to 10, 10 being worse. Mental abuse of a 3 is not worse than physical abuse of a 9. So, you have to do that
The
analysis.
narcissist,
You keep wanting to have these common sense conversations. And I keep telling everyone, this is not common sense. I wish it was. It's not common sense. You got to get in there. You got to dig in there. You got to do the legal analysis. You got to have the evidence. You keep talking to me like this is right and wrong. We know what's right and wrong. But if that's the analysis you're going to use in court, you'll always lose. Always. So let's quit fighting it and get with the program. Accept what the law is. You can't change it. Oh, I take that back. You can change it, but you haven't. It's, millions of dollars to change laws, a lot of support, a lot of work. So if you're not going to change the law, You got to accept the one that you have. Otherwise, you're going to be calling out corruption. And, I told you this before. I know you disagree with me. A lot of these cases aren't corruption. They are the parent doesn't know what's going on, doesn't know what they're doing, doesn't present the right evidence. The parent thinking good and bad, right and wrong should win out. And you know from your own experience that is not true. So let's quit fighting it, get with the program, do our analysis, get our evidence, get our lawyer working, and let's win these cases. Let's not, I don't mind hearing these stories from people. But when I tell the person, hey, this is what you got to do, a lot of people tell me, why do I have to do that? I'm right. God knows I'm right. And that's it. Okay. In the old days, I used to argue with them. I don't anymore.
Well, actually, I still let them know that just God is with, yes, I believe God is with us. However, God didn't just sit on your butt and I'm gonna,
Right.
and
Right.
the God didn't say that either. God said labor, you're gonna labor for your food. God says um that, God basically, I always think of the story that my mom and dad used to tell me. If somebody was drowning in the ocean and God sent them so many people to rescue him, and he said, no, I'm waiting for God, I'm waiting for God, I'm waiting for God, and he died. So when he went to God, he said, why didn't you help me? He said, I sent so many people to you. So the help is coming to you. We do advise you guys. We are passionate about helping you guys get your children back, but you also need to put your thinking hat on. And
Miss G, that was such a great example. Do me a favor. You may not have it at your fingertips now. Would you get me the proverb or the cite to what you just told me? I'm
mhm,
going to make that my motto of these shows,
mhm,
because I think a lot of people are just like that guy. They're
yep.
waiting and they don't realize that God is sending them people to help them.
No, they don't. Well, a couple of them do. Like one that just hired us. Her name starts with an M. I can't say her full name, but she told me that she felt like God was talking to her because I said so much to her that it needed to be confirmed.
Mhm.
Um,
Miss G, are you calling me on my cell phone right now?
I didn't mean to. I'm
Oh,
talking on the
okay.
show.
That was a
Okay.
butt dial.
Yeah, it was. I'm sorry. It was in my
No problem.
pocket. But yeah, I will definitely get it for you. But she
I
said the same thing. She said that everything I said to her was a confirmation that she needed.
Okay. So let me answer this question because it's a really good question. People ask me this all the time. The nonconformist. Good morning, nonconformist. Great to have you on the show posing a question. It says, why is dependency court a higher court?
It's a state
Wh- the answer is, what do you think the answer is, Miss G? Why is it a higher court?
because it's the state. The state supersedes family court. It's a state, and also they your conviction is state level.
Well, hold on. You're getting close, but I'm going to give you the exact answer.
Hmm.
Okay. Miss Nonconformist, the reason juvenile dependency court is a higher court because the state legislature has deemed it so.
Damn legislators. And
Now,
actually, the
they
state court
could deem
is
they
really
could deem
sad.
it they can deem it the other way, but that's not how it's been deemed. And I think it has to do, I researched this maybe 7, 8 years ago. I think it has to do with federal funding.
Yep.
So it's required by the Department of Health and Human Services in their regulations, I believe. And so every state has to, you know, go along with that, or no federal money.
But the federal funding comes from a lot of different things, just so you guys know it. Child support too. They enforce child support because they get dollar for dollar.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and I didn't
Yeah.
know this because I remember a while ago, long time ago, I said, I don't want child support. I don't want anything. And I remember the attorney I had at the time, she said, you have to. I'm like, but I don't want to. But I couldn't understand why.
You know,
Um,
I just had a conversation with one of our clients about that,
mhm.
and I explained to him that under the law, the child support money that he might receive
Mm-hmm.
doesn't belong to him.
Mm-mm.
It belongs to the child.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he's allowed to use it to maintain the certain lifestyle
Mm-hmm.
that the mother lives in this particular case, right? But the money actually belongs to the kid.
But some fathers actually say to their children, "Go tell the mom to buy it for you."
Right.
Go tell your older brother to buy it for you. And basically, that father has a yacht membership, that he uses the mother's money for,
So
stuff like
I,
that.
I would just classify that as an ignorant statement, or might be a really smart statement, but he has his own agenda,
Mm.
and that agenda might not be financial. That agenda might be, hey, let me punish that bitch of a ex-wife that I had that had these kids. I see that a lot. I see that a lot.
Yeah, I see a lot of women also saying, "I don't want child support," while the man goes after them for child support, which is really, really sad.
Right. So,
Why is our phone calling each other? I'm
I,
not
I
understanding.
I don't know. I have my phone just sitting on a thing, and it says you're calling me with someone else.
I
Someone,
didn't touch anything. I swear.
no, no, no. Someone else is trying to do a three-way call with us, right?
Oh,
And I guess they don't know that we're on live stream right now.
oh my God.
Okay, nonconformist has another question of parency. Family code doesn't allow for the parent that has committed domestic violence to have custody of the child. That's almost a correct statement, not quite. Juvenile court will place a child with the parent who the juvenile court previously sustained DV allegations. That is true.
That is so true.
Yeah. Now, that is one of the important differences between the family code and the WIC code, the juvenile code. Exact opposite results. Depends on what court you're going to be in. Thank you, nonconformist.
No, but actually,
That's a really good example,
it is.
nonconformist.
She's really good. You know,
Hi, Tracy.
um,
Tracy, while Miss G is thinking, let me ask you this. Is your case really a case of corruption, or is it a case of you don't know what's going on and you don't have the right evidence and the right legal representation? Because remember, even if you're right, if you don't prove your case or prove your defense the right way with a competent, admissible evidence, you're going to lose. Now, some people call that corruption. I don't call it corruption. I call it you don't know what you're doing. Because the truth does not necessarily come out in a courtroom. The truth is determined by relevant, competent, admissible evidence. And what if you don't have your relevant, competent, admissible evidence at the hearing? You lose. I know that's harsh. I didn't make the rule. It's part of the English common law system. And that's just how our system is based. Okay.
after the show, we need to discuss. Somebody was calling me and you. It's important for just if you don't mind.
Okay. Alrighty. So I know before the call and before I interrupted you, you were going to say something. Do you remember?
I was talking to our clients.
Oh,
She's the one that was trying to get a hold of us.
oh,
Yeah, but it's important.
okay. Bum, 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 bum.
What was the? Oh yeah, I knew what I was gonna say. Yeah,
Mhm.
the reason that the juvenile court, okay, both courts actually see that it's okay to place the children with the abusive parent. You do know that, right? I mean, they see that it's okay because at the end of the day, when you're dealing with a mentally disturbed person, they actually convince the court, so you're the crazy one and he's the sane one. And somehow the courts are not. And I heard Judge Anthony. I've been following him a lot, actually. Kind of talked a little bit, but anyway, Judge Anthony said um, that the courts should be more. They should study psychology. Actually, the judges. He recommends that. Why? Because it's so. important for the judge to see the person in front of them, the parent in front of them, that person in front of them, who's the best fit for the child. And you can usually read body language and you can detect a narcissist very easily. But the thing that made Judge Anthony very good at it is because he actually did study psychology before he became a judge. And that's how he knows so much about narcissists and what have you. But Mr. Davis also knows a lot about narcissists. But I'm just saying that the court itself always gives the child to the abuser. Don't you agree, Mr. Davis?
No, it depends. Depends on a lot of different factors. That happens a lot, though. Which the result that you just said, it does happen a lot. It's not always, though.
Hmm.
I'm
That is
sorry. I'm a lawyer. Small technicality. Happens a lot. You're right. Happens.
now
Should
how
happen.
many
Should
out of
happen.
100, how many percent do you think?
Oh, that's hard. That would be hard to do.
I'm not a lawyer, but I
You know,
observe very
it,
well. I
it,
would say
it,
90%.
it would be hard for me to say because a lot of times, I don't really know the other side. I don't know what happened. Sometimes, have I ever had a client lie to me? Yeah. Here's an example. Client says ABC happened. I learned 8 months into the case. Well, that wasn't really true, Mr. Davis. I'm sorry. Does that happen? Oh, yeah.
That happens 100% of the time, Davis. I'm a witness to that.
Let me
Not
let me
90.
answer this. Let me
Mhm.
answer this nonconformist. How can I get my attorney to strategize with my points in mind? My attorney is quite competent, and I'm not a lawyer. But unfortunately, I have a CPS target on my back. I have 2 cases at the same time. 2 cases at the same time is unusual. Cases should be consolidated, even if they're in different counties. But how can you get your attorney to strategize with you? That's a very good question. It has more to do with interpersonal skills than with legal analysis. So, Miss Nonconformist, I bet you know how to talk to people, how to suggest or get people to help you. And I suggest you use those skills in trying to get your attorney to speak with you. I would do it probably via email, okay? Because you have a record of what was being sent. Okay, Don says, "Hi, Miss G and Mr. Davis. I want to know, based on your experience, is it possible to represent a client out of state, or is it best to refer them elsewhere for representation?"
You
Um,
can, but Prohag Vici is involved here.
yeah. So Don, it just depends. It depends. If you live in Florida and I live in LA, just know for me to come to Florida to fight CPS is going to be a very expensive proposition, right? And if you want to hire outside the state, you can. You could hire someone from Georgia, someone from, closer to Florida if you can't find anyone in Florida. But I would bet if you haven't hired anyone in Florida, you probably need to keep looking, right? Because for you, it becomes a better deal. Now, I've had people call me, and I've told them, hey, you can't find somebody in Florida. And they say, no, they don't want somebody from Florida. They want me to come do the case. And I'll do it. It's just expensive. Okay, Nonconformist says, 2 kids, 2 different kids, same county. Okay, if you're the mother of both of those kids, Nonconformist, I believe the cases should be consolidated. Oh, she says,
So that's a good question.
I didn't think of that. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
The case can be consolidated if they have 2 different parents, right?
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
she would only be involved if she was the mother of both kids.
right. So so what if it's a father that has 2 different mamas and he's married and then the new mama has kids and then they go and take all of the kids and then they consolidate the case into one. Can they do
That,
that?
Yes, and that would be, in my opinion, in most cases, the proper thing to do.
That's in California, by the way.
Yeah,
Okay.
would be the
Okay.
proper thing to
That
do.
makes okay. Now that makes sense. That was my next question that I was thinking about earlier. That potential client called me. We spoke like maybe 10, 15 last night, and he was telling me that they can't do that. That other attorneys told him they can't do that. And I was like, well, let me ask Davis, because that's a good question. I really wasn't sure, but you confirmed it.
They can do it, and they probably should, for what's called judicial economy, and to make sure that two different judges don't come up with two different rulings or findings of fact. Imagine if one judge said that I didn't abuse the kid, and the other judge said I did abuse the kid. Like, how's that possible? So to alleviate that danger, we give it to one judge and let that judge, him or her, make the decision on the case.
Yeah, but what I don't understand, why would they go take those kids? They had nothing to do with the new wife or the new girlfriend and their babies, right? So why
Oh
are
no,
you
no,
gonna go?
possibly they do, possibly do. Let me give you
But
an
they live
example.
in a different location
Yeah,
of like why?
I'm going to tell you.
Well, tell me now.
Okay, I'm going to tell you by the Socratic method, which is used in law school, and I'm going to give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say I'm married to the new wife, and I have 3 kids, and we live in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
The old wife has 3 kids with me, and they live in where?
Arizona.
Arizona. Okay. It would be difficult for them to file on a case where kids are in Arizona because it's not in the same jurisdiction.
Mm.
Um, so they probably couldn't file in Arizona, but if they lived in California, say in San Diego, they could file on those kids because I could pose a risk to both sets of children. So what if the allegation was that I sexually abused one of my 3 kids with the current wife? Well, for sure, I'm a possible risk to the kids in San Diego. So they might file a case regarding the kids in San Diego as well. Because if I'm abusing kids, you know, and they're in California, they're under the jurisdiction of the state.
Anyways, okay, thank you for answering that. What if the court hearings are on Zoom and they're out of state, Arizona or Las Vegas, whatever? Um, is that always the case, or sometimes they'll say Zoom, but then the next hearing might be in person?
Right.
So
I'm fine.
basically, people think we can just assume that it's going to be Zoom going forward, But I want to be able to help them, but you know, some can't afford it, obviously. But they asked if there is a
I,
chance it will be lower if it's Zoom.
let me tell you of something that just happened yesterday.
Hmm.
We have a case in Sonoma County, which is up north.
Right, I know.
Okay.
Hmm.
Um, Yesterday, now I've appeared maybe 8, 9 times, all on Zoom, right?
Yeah, I know.
Yesterday, the judge ordered that at the next hearing in February, I had to be there
In
personally.
person. Yep. I tell people all the time, you don't know what the judge is going to do.
Right.
So we can't assume that it's going to be online only. So
Correct.
maybe you can address that because a lot of
Correct.
people do ask me that.
So people think it's going to be online, and
Mhm,
then, of course, it suddenly is. I have to fly up to Sonoma,
mhm.
catch an Uber, go to court, make the court appearance, catch an Uber back to the airport, and fly back. Adds a lot of time and cost to the case.
Right. And also people don't understand that we offer services. Services. We actually offer services. We don't get paid by the state to
Right.
screw you. Yeah.
Nonconformist, my attorney asked to change judge at the outset of the case out of concern for bias against me on part of that case. Okay, you have the right to do that at the beginning of the case. And then here's Dawn. Dawn says, okay, the court is over Zoom. Call instead of in person.
I guess that
Um,
she was okay, we already answered that pretty
yeah.
much. Yeah.
But here's another thing that's kind of funny. I made an appearance yesterday afternoon in a case in Los Angeles,
Mhm,
downtown Los Angeles, maybe 30 minutes from me
mhm,
driving. It was on Zoom and it's going to stay on Zoom.
mm.
But the judge in Sonoma says, I got to go up there in person. So you don't know what a judge is going to do or why he or she is going to make a ruling. But if the judge says, I got to be there in person, guess what? I got to be there in person. And it just adds to the expense of the case, unfortunately for the client.
And I think the judges do that on purpose. Honestly, that's just my opinion to actually cause chaos to the parent even more. I don't think they want them to hire an attorney. I have so many parents who actually they were the social workers were upset that they hired a private attorney. Very upset at them. And she said they would tell them the judge will not be happy. The judge will not be happy. The judge will not be happy. I heard this. Oh my God. I hear this at least 20 times a month from people.
You know, my general experience over the years, the decades, is that the judges don't care. The social workers care because if a private attorney is brought in, that turns up the heat on the social worker. They have
Hmm.
they're not going to get away with their usual, bullshit if some private attorney comes up there and starts demanding things. And there's probably going to be a trial, you know. There's not going to be plea of no contest. There's going to be a trial. They're going to challenge the social worker. And the other thing that social workers are concerned about um, is being sued. So they don't want to be sued. So if you got generally, if you have a court appointed attorney, you may not be sued. The odds are there. But I've had court appointed attorneys refer me cases, for possible lawsuits against the social worker. So anyway, we've come to the end of our show today. Thank you everyone for watching. We'll be on tomorrow. Well, at least I will be on tomorrow, 9 a.m. with another version of the show. Hopefully, Grace, we might have a guest.
You will. I have a
Okay.
guest actually. She's been asking to be on the show for a
Okay.
while.
So tomorrow at 9 will be a good time for us. All
I'm
right,
gonna talk
everyone.
to Grace about her. So.
All right, everyone. Thank you for watching. Have a good Saturday. Bye bye.